Hey guys, welcome back to Zane Customs. In this week's episode, I'm going to be sculpting a lava monster. So a few months ago, I put out a video titled Failing at Sculpting a Lava Monster. And that was because, for any of you who have seen the video, they'll know, but when I set out to sculpt it, I had a pretty specific idea in mind for how I wanted the lava monster to work, or to look in the end. And I didn't really stick to that. I just kind of started sketching away and came up with something that was not really what I was going for at all. And this one I'm considering more of a success because this is what I originally intended for the lava monster design. And that's not to say that my original sculpt wasn't a decent sculpt. I liked the way it looked, but it wasn't what I was going for. And what I was going for, again, what was this sculpt right here, just a big hulking monster, a lot more goopy. The old one, I'll throw up a photo here in a sec so you guys can see. It looked all right, but it was a much more anatomically correct to a human look, and I wasn't really going for that. I was wanting more of a hulking monster, more of a beast, and this guy also looked a little bit more like something you would see out of a more realistic video game interpretation or something like that. And basically, it really just wasn't the look I was going for. But before I get too far into that, I just want to mention that I started the sculpt off in Forger, which is a sculpting app for the iPad Pro. And I really like starting sculpts off in there for a number of reasons. One, because it's quick and easy, and it's on my iPad, so I can take it anywhere. And I probably have 1,000,001 sculpts started on my iPad because I only take them so far before I take them over to my computer and work on them in ZBrush. So I have 1,000,001 of them that I've started on my iPad, and it's just nice for just getting ideas out there quickly. But as you can see, I don't take it very far. I don't even really start posing or anything until I get over to here, which is ZBrush. And ZBrush is a professional sculpting program that you can get on your PC or anything like that, and just a lot more powerful, and you can do a lot more with it. And like I mentioned, posing is one of the first things I do once I get over to ZBrush, just because I want to make sure, like, it's nice to leave it in the original pose from Forger, because then it's symmetrical and I can keep sculpting back and forth. But this guy, I didn't really worry about that because I knew there wasn't going to be a whole lot of detail except for his hands and his head, because those are supposed to be made out of rock, and I didn't want them to be symmetrical anyway. I wanted it to look a little bit more natural and haphazard, so I wasn't really too worried about it being symmetrical. So I just went ahead and started posing, and my idea for the pose was have him reaching out like he's about to grab someone, and then have a ball of lava in his left hand that he might be getting ready to chuck at someone or something like that. And the whole idea behind this lava monster sculpt, and I don't think I even mentioned this in my last attempt at the lava monster video I did, but yeah, the whole idea is me and my buddy came up with an idea for a lava monster board game. And when we were younger, we used to always go to this playground and play lava monster on there, and we played it so much we started making up different rules and different variations and different types of the game. And a couple years ago, we started thinking of ideas for board games just for fun, and Lava Monster came up because it's a game that we played probably the most as kids, and even as teenagers and stuff. We played it a lot, and so we came up with this really cool idea for a Lava Monster board game, and it's still something I think it'd be fun to try and make in the future. But the whole idea behind sculpting the Lava Monster just came from the idea for that board game. I wanted to have a little Lava Monster piece for whoever's a Lava Monster can move this piece around on the board. And I just bring that up because with the success of this sculpt, or how happy I am with it, I guess, it's really making me consider going back to that board game and really trying to figure it out, and eventually sculpt in the different pieces, the human pieces that are in this Lava Monster world and trying to survive. And there's a lot of other stuff happening in this game, so I just wanted to bring that up because that's something that I might be coming back to this whole Lava Monster idea in the future. But yeah, to hop back into what's going on in the sculpt, you can see I just added in a ball of lava in his left hand again. I just thought that would be cool, especially because in the game that's one of the abilities that the Lava Monster can do. He can throw lava balls at people and slow them down and do different things. But just like my previous lava monster sculpt, I wanted him to be walking or kind of trudging through lava and have it be this big gooping mass, and I wanted it kind of rippling out and splashing out, but it's not water, so I didn't want it to be too fluid looking, so I tried to make it, or tried to leave it as goopy and as thick looking as possible, and I think it turned out pretty good. I added this little droplet kind of shooting out, and eventually I got rid of that because it looked a little bit too much like water to me. But yeah, that pretty much the sculpt up to this point, once I get it over to ZBrush, is just posing it and then fixing up the mesh, because when you pose, it messes up a lot of things. I've mentioned this in previous videos, but pretty much when you're sculpting digitally, everything's made out of a bunch of either squares or triangles, and when you pose, some of those squares or triangles, the polygons, that's what they're called, can get stretched, and just a lot of weird geometry can happen, something that you obviously don't have to worry about in real life, because real life, isn't a computer simulation. It's not made out of polygons, so it's a lot easier. But as far as that goes, it's easier, but yeah, that's just something you have to fix, and it usually takes a while, but obviously it's worth it. You don't want to leave some weird looking geometry all over your sculpt. And then here I got this new brush called Melted Candle, and I'm just trying to go around the body, and again, he's made out of lava, so I want that really thick, goopy, lava looking material, but it's a fine line, because again, I don't want it to look like water, so some of the droops end up being a little too big and I had to tone them back. And then here I'm just masking off the entire body except for the top of his right forearm here, which again I want it to look like rock. And in the end, I kind of decide I want it to look like obsidian. In my previous video, I tried to make it look like lava rock. I looked up some photos of like igneous rock, and I went for more of a matte, porous looking material. But with this one, I just thought it looked so much better to try to make it look like obsidian, especially after I put this highly reflective black material on there. I just thought it looked really good. And yeah, then after that, I just decided to go for it. And pretty much the only rock on his body up to this point is the top of his forearms, his fingertips, and his head. But you'll see after I get that done, I decide to add some smaller pieces in between the two. And as far as sculpting the rock, it actually turned out pretty well, a lot better than my old sculpt. I'd basically go in with a big flat brush and just make a flat spot, turn the sculpt, make another one. I wanted a bunch of random flat spots all across the rock to make it random looking, and then I would go in on all the edges and use a brush that basically emphasizes those points. And that brush is good and bad in certain situations, but it really works very well here because again, I was going for more of an obsidian rock look, and obsidian rock isn't necessarily doesn't necessarily have a bunch of flat points like this. They're a little bit more cupped, curved. If any of you have seen obsidian or watched anybody break obsidian, when you break off pieces, they kind of curve to points, and so that brush kind of takes those points and pulls them up and kind of makes the flat points look a little bit more cupped, and it worked really well for that. And another difference between this sculpt and the last is on my last sculpt, after I sculpted out the rock, the basic shape of it, I went through with a rocky texture, kind of a porous looking rock texture, and textured all the rock. And I didn't end up doing that with this one because again, obsidian's fairly smooth. There is some texture, some wave texture kind of going on in there, but I think it just looked better leaving it smooth. If I would have went in with any sort of rock textures and tried to make it look too jagged or again porous, I don't think it would have looked nearly as good as it did. And just in between working on the rock on his hands and his head, I just go in and keep tweaking the body and the lava droops or lava droplets on his body just to make him look as good as possible. I do want the basic form of I guess it's not really a human form because he's obviously doesn't have a neck. He's way too big, way too bulky, but there is obviously some basic human anatomy going on underneath everything, and I still want that basic form. I just want it to look like if you had a human and you just dumped a bunch of lava on him and all that lava was pouring off, what would that look like? And that's what I'm going for as far as the rest of his body, not including the rock texture. And I kind of went back and forth with his head a lot when I was sculpting the rock in here, because I could have added eyes and I could have added a jaw, the bottom part of his mouth, and I'm actually happy I didn't add eyes or a jaw. I think it looks a lot better, a lot more like just some random monster. Again, with my old sculpt, I think I went a little bit too realistic, too much like it looked more like something you'd see in a video game, maybe like a lava spirit or something, but not a lava monster, if that makes sense. And that's what I was going for. And I did add the jaw in at one point, and it looked a little bit too creepy, and I want this to be a monster, but again, this is like it's designed for a board game that I'm coming up with, and I didn't want it to be too creepy. And some of you might notice from one hand to another, he's got more rock on some of his fingers than are on his left hand versus his right hand. And as again, I didn't want it to be too symmetrical. And then here with his underbody, I'm using a material called skin shade, and what I'm doing is going in and painting him yellow and red and just trying to get some different tones. But to get that glow effect, I just went into the light settings, and you can go in and add different lightings on, rim lights and all this stuff. But I basically just created a yellow and a red light and boosted them, so they're just super bright lights, and they kind of gave the effect of the lava glowing. And you can go in, there are materials that allow you to do to actually have glowing effects, and I've played around with a lot of those. I never really show those off in any videos, just because I don't think they look very good personally. I don't really like them. Again, you'll see I'll go back and forth between turning the lights on and off, and you can just see the difference it makes between just the skin shade material with the red and yellow paint going across it versus turning those lights on. Really helps sell the glow effect. Like, yeah, you can see here, it doesn't really look like it's meant to be lava at this point. And having that light off makes it a lot easier to tell what's going on. When it's on, it's obviously it's really bright. It's just kind of hard to tell what's going on your mesh, and just makes it easier for what I'm doing here, which is I basically created a new rock, and then I'm just going in and placing it and then duplicating it and moving it around. So this is all the same rock that is just duplicated and then stretched and warped in different directions to make it look like a variety of different rocks. And I just basically wanted to look like he had his head, and from his head down to his back, he had the rock kind of cracking, almost like maybe he was sitting under the lava and the top of him had cooled and turned into this obsidian, and then he popped up, and certain parts of him, being his arms and his head, stayed solid, but the rest of it kind of broke up and shattered. I wanted it to kind of look like a gradient between rock and lava going up from his arms to his shoulders and from his head down to his back. And then once I get all those rocks placed and I'm happy with how they look, I go ahead and kind of sculpt the lava around the rocks. Again, I want him to look like he's made out of lava, so he's going to be constantly moving and flowing and almost a living thing. And I just don't want it to look like the rocks are just kind of sitting on top of him. And then there's certain rocks that were a little too buried, and kind of helping to dig them out of the lava a little bit. And then you can see once I turn those lights back on, it looks like lava again, and I think adding those rocks in really helped. And then I'm actually going to go in and add a little bit of lava in the cracks of his forearms. And I actually did try to add a little bit into his head, but it didn't really look that good. That's the finished sculpt right there, and here's a little turntable so you guys can see the whole sculpt. Again, I'm super happy with the way it turned out. Love the color. I'm just super happy with it. Here's a few glamour shots. But I'd love to hear what you guys think about it. For any of you who follow my channel, have seen my old video, if you guys prefer this sculpt or my original lava monster, and if you prefer the other one, let me know why. I'd be interested in that. And if there's anything you guys want to see me sculpt in the future, definitely hit me up in the comments. There's a pretty darn good chance I'll do it. And I just wanted to say thanks so much to all of you out there who watch the video all the way to the end. I super appreciate it. Super appreciate anybody willing to like, comment, subscribe, anything like that. Helps me out a ton. And yeah, it's just super appreciate it. And also want to mention, if anybody is interested in any of these sculpts that I do on this channel, you can check out my Etsy. Everything I do on here, I sell on Etsy. So yeah, link down in the description if you guys want to check that out. And again, just thank you so much, and I'll see you next week.